And we are live. Welcome to the Neurodivergent Normal podcast. We are your hosts, Photon John and Danny WX. How you doing, Danny?
Good. Good evening, Photon John. I'm doing pretty well. How are you?
Yeah. I'm just getting into. I had a week off work while I focused on the first gig for the new band, which was very nice to be back on stage after 2.5 years.
Yeah, definitely.
Little work to do, but we did all right, I think, considering we had to pull it all together in about 6 weeks, and with we came into it with unfinished songs and stuff. So I think we did quite well considering. But we'll make a few changes and keep getting better. How's your week been so far?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I was actually at your gig, as you know.
Yes,
so that might be a bit of a surprise for the listeners. We we do stuff outside the podcast. No, but I enjoyed it. It was good seeing you back on stage. I mean, the songs were sounding good from my place in the audience, and looking forward to more gigs. My week's been good so far because I made the resolution just yesterday. Actually, I decided to stop doom scrolling social media. So so far so good. I think today's been the most productive day I've had in a while, and I'm sure that in a couple of weeks I'll have founded a Fortune 500 company or something, because I've been
how are you going about it?
Well, I have to stop myself. Like, I'll pick up the phone, I'll start doom scrolling through Instagram, and I'll just go, no, bad. And I'll put the phone down again. I still look at things, and I still want to be on there to promote this podcast and stuff. But one thing I've learned from social media is everybody's selling a course. They'll rage bait you with a shit take, and then they'll sell a course. They'll be like, this is why you're a loser, and then you'll be like, hey, wait a second, that hurts my feelings. Scroll down, it's a link to their course. That's how they get you.
Yeah. I think I was watching the Louis Theroux documentary on the Manosphere.
Oh yeah, I've seen that. Yeah,
I think that was kind of one of his main takeaways. I watched interviews with him about it as well, and he was like, a lot of it's just shopping. He said, they get you in with these sort of broader philosophical, ouch, that hurt moments, and but then once you're there, they're just selling you crap,
Yeah. Well, you have to like Chadmog the Matrix or whatever they say. I mean,
Chadmog the Matrix.
It's how you protect your bitcoins. Something like that. I mean, yeah, I've seen that documentary as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. I was watching. What was it today? People talking about the sudden surge in certain types of political parties and whatnot, and no one's taking into account the fact that we're living in an age with a giant machine behind it. The giant consent machine, social media, and I think this is something like 400 fake websites a year or a month or something are being pushed out by like foreign websites, in support of just I guess dividing us and all that kind of stuff. And then the platforms themselves don't help much in that respect.
Right.
So, but yeah, good on you. I really hope one day we get some ethical social media that's not purely based on trying to increase clicks. There's a little. I'll give you a little breakdown. There was a thing that happened. This is me badly repeating things that I've read, but from experts in the field, where everyone was sort of socialist about the internet, like all the developers and all the Silicon Valley people. They're like, everything has to be free. And so, Facebook was free, MySpace was free, MySpace failed. Facebook thought, well, how can we make money so that we don't fail? And they thought, we'll run some ads. And at first it was kind of cute, it's like your local dog groomer or butcher or whatever. And then after a while they went, when we do this, they behave that way. And they started doing tests on, I remember like, it would have been 2013 when it came out that Facebook had been doing testing on us and how they could affect our feelings, based on what they changed about the feed and whatnot.
Yeah,
and everyone was mortified that would happen. And now everyone just seems to sort of accept that it's a thing.
Yeah. Because I mean, when I was vegan a little while ago, and I was like Googling vegan recipes and things, Facebook would show me like Facebook pages that was like Mr. Bacon and his all bacon diet and stuff.
Oh, you mean Liver King?
Oh no, there was a different guy, like a bacon, his whole thing was just eating bacon, and that was apparently how he got his
Was
mojo
it
or
like, was he
something.
trolling, or was it
I think
true?
it was quite sincere.
Wow. Okay.
So there you go.
Did you ever see the Liver King?
I've heard of that. He
Man,
eats liver, doesn't he?
yeah, yeah. He only eats raw, unprocessed meat, or pretended to. It's like, yeah, I'm all natural. That's how I got these big muscles. And it turns out he's like, absolutely pumping steroids and whatnot. But
Yeah.
I was just
Well,
like, how can
yeah.
people believe this crap? But then, because you take one look at him as a sensible person, and you go, yeah, okay, what a weirdo. But yeah, again, I guess just repetition works.
Yeah. Is he selling a course though? Is he like, you have to eat this many grams of liver per
Yeah, I mean,
day?
I
So
assume he must have sold something. I think he did sell supplements, or I don't know, something. I think, yeah, just like, yeah, I don't know. He was like pseudo, um, like caveman diet, organic, but also like, yeah, just I don't know, super pumped up on chemicals and steroids, and just, yeah, I don't know.
yeah. I
Anyway,
mean, I've seen the name and stuff, Liver King. I think I saw some unappetizing pictures, like some pictures of him eating liver that
yeah,
uh
raw.
some raw liver that didn't actually make me hungry. I was like, this doesn't look very
No, no,
appetizing.
no, not at all.
But yeah, on the topic of more wholesome things, I mean, this is really part two of a two-part episode, isn't it? So
Yeah,
sort of.
yeah, sort of. Yeah. So Lawrence, who we're about to bring in, he was one of the technicians at the TMS clinic where I got my TMS therapy. Very quick recap for anyone who hasn't seen the previous episode. That's transcranial magnetic stimulation,
Yep.
and that is basically just small electromagnetic pulses into the brain. Lawrence can probably explain a lot better than I can. Over a period of time, I had about 35 sessions. They're about 18 minutes each. And just, yeah, extremely useful for a whole variety of things, particularly long-term treatment-resistant depression, anxiety, OCD, PTSD. But Lawrence was actually part of a study where they looked at how it might improve sleep in autistic children.
Okay.
And it was, yeah, basically we got talking because Lawrence was the main person giving me my treatment along with Linda. Hi, Linda, if you're out there. And we got to talking a little bit about it, and I thought, okay, you need to come on the podcast, and so yeah,
Cool.
he agreed.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll bring him in and get started.
Yeah. Cool.
Hello, Lawrence.
Hi, Lawrence.
Hello, Mr. Danny and John. How are we doing today?
I'm good. I'm good.
Very good. How are you?
I'm all right.
And I see you there. So when I was on the episode with Dan from Connected Minds TMS where we met the other week, we were talking about how a friend's son needed TMS, and we were looking for a clinic out near where they are, and it turned out to be your clinic.
Oh,
Pretty cool. Because it's Springfield Lakes, right?
yes, exactly.
Yeah, okay.
I think I'm familiar with the person you're talking about. Yeah.
Okay, great. young autistic man?
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, awesome. I'm glad they came through.
Yeah.
Cool. So, Lawrence, I think just to get started, we'll just get a little background on yourself for listeners. So, give us a little background on your career, how you came into the TMS therapy field.
Well, that's a very long story.
Yeah.
So my name is Lawrence Ezedinma. I've got a PhD around the public health space with real emphasis and interest around neurodivergent individuals, especially children between the ages of 6 and 12. That's my passion, just anyone below the ages of 18, because it's very much critical that we need to early intervention, early support, everything we can do to actually help the brain develop typically to the best of functionality. But that's not where I started from. I actually started as a pharmacist in Nigeria. I'm licensed to practice in Nigeria, but medication has never been my thing. So I moved over to Australia, did a master's in public health around climate change and its impact on countries that are low income and how they adapt to climate change. While I was doing my master's, I was also working at a clinic that was treating children with autism using transcranial magnetic stimulation. And believe you me, my logical pharmaceutical brain was like, there is no way you put a magnetic field on someone's brain and it's going to change anything. Until
Yeah.
yeah, I still remember the guy's name, man. For confidentiality, I will not mention it, but he did say it not as clearly as I'm speaking to you, but anybody who is paying attention could hear him saying, "Mama, I love you," while I was delivering the treatment. So the mother broke down in tears, and I didn't know whether to stop the treatment to console her or like. But this was a child who at that time was 5 years old and has never said a word. So
Oh,
when he
wow.
made that phrase or that statement,
Yeah.
I was convinced that something is happening here. And
Yeah. Oh,
I then promised myself that based on that experience I had, I was going to try my possible best to investigate the use of
yeah.
transcranial magnetic stimulation in children who are neurodiverse or who are experiencing neurodevelopmental challenges or conditions. And by 2022, I started my PhD at the University of the Sunshine Coast. And last year, I was conferred for my extensive work I did within that field. So in a
Oh,
nutshell, that was
congrats.
just sort
Brilliant.
of my journey from pharmacy to finding myself within the public health space, but with real emphasis around magnetic stimulation in individuals who are neurodiverse, basically.
I
Yeah.
have to admit, the first time I ever heard about TMS, I just heard the magnet part, and I thought, "Oh no," because I've seen those people selling those magnetic pillows on on
Yeah.
TV ads and whatnot.
Yeah.
But when it
Yeah.
got explained to me, I was just like, "Wow, okay, this is legit science."
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a learning experience for me because the first time you explained it to me, John, I knew that it must have worked because clearly it was working for you, but I didn't understand any of the science behind it. I just heard magnets and was like, yeah, how do they work? And yeah, that's
So
so
John,
the
John,
last.
John, John had stimulation. You had magnet. So okay, I had transcranial. So
Yeah. So yeah, the last interview we did with Dan was quite a learning experience for me. I was just like, okay, right. So that's how that works.
yeah.
Hmm.
So
Yeah,
I
and
mean,
sorry, you go.
it's sort of like a long word for transcranial. That means passing through the brain. Cranial means the brain. Magnetic and stimulation. So it's just generating an electromagnetic field that has enough intensity to cross the head, the skin, the scalp, the skull, dura mater, get down to the brain and excite or inhibit the brain. So it's a very interesting and fascinating form of therapy that has come on board.
And we're jumping around the questions a little bit here, but when I was there, I remember you used your thumb and your hand to explain to me how it works.
Yeah.
Could you possibly repeat that first? Because that really helped me understand visually.
So one of the interesting thing was that I don't know if you guys the ADHD conference that was
Oh,
held
cool.
sometime early this month, and
Oh, okay. No, I haven't
so
heard of that.
a patient of mine actually attended that conference, and somewhere around the page was the description of
Oh,
the hand
wow.
model of the brain. And
Exactly how
then
you did it.
when I realized that Dr. Dan Siegel came up with the idea of it's an oversimplification of how the brain works, but still it can really serve as a metaphor to sort of explain it in layperson's terms so that people can really grasp it. So my hand would be considered the brain. So the middle of my palm let's us refer to that as your brain stem. So that's controlling breathing, respiration, those things you don't think about that goes on in the background.
Yeah.
Now my thumb is your midbrain or what we call your limbic system. So those are part of the brain that controls emotional response within the amygdala, just
Lizard
basically
brain.
anything that has to do with emotions.
Yeah.
Then the four fingers, when they fold in, is the cerebral cortex. Some people consider this as what separates us from the animals, makes us higher animals basically. So if we have the brain stem, which is just controlling respiration, and the limbic system, which controls emotion, sitting on this, if an individual hears an upsetting news, this can overtly be activated, and this can also activate the brainstem that people go into panic attack because the emotions
Yeah.
is riding on the brainstem. So they start breathing and finding things uneasy. Now, if the four fingers holds touches the brainstem. The four fingers, which is the cerebral cortex, is readily ascribed to area of executive functioning, logic. So it allows us to control our emotional response to things, allows us to stop, think, puts a brake on the impulsive nature of wanting to let your emotions go. You could stop and think and, oh no, and sort of come back with a response rather than just allowing your emotions fly. So this is sort of the hand model used in explaining. It's an oversimplification because there are some other things running in the background. But it sort of explains how the brain works, and in terms of if I put a magnetic coil on the cerebral cortex, I'm trying to stimulate these four fingers for it to be able to create more neural connections with this and able to downplay the emotional side of the brain from being overtly activated. So when patients or clients come into the clinic, that's what we're trying to do, stimulate the cerebral cortex, give it a much more neural connections with the emotional side of the brain, which is the limbic system, and therefore people can have a greater control of their emotions, their impulsivity, aggressions. But overall, there's that improvement in cognitive processing where people are not just 100% emotionally responsive. They could have maybe 70% being cognitively responsive. They can make executive decisions rapidly, quickly, and efficiently. So those sort of experiences of brain fog, delay in thought processing just improves, and people are able to get going really fast. You can look at it from the pharmaceutical point of view as a stimulant, stimulates the brain, and but in a non-pharmaceutical way. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I was really fascinated. I started looking, once you explained that to me like that, I started looking more into, I mean, I've heard it a million times, that mental distress can cause nervous system issues. I think that's the part a lot of people don't understand is that connection to your actual physical body. And that's why, being mentally,
the emotion can
disturbed is not the word, but emotional can trigger actual physical nervous system responses. And then to know that the thinking bit sits on top of that and regulates how that interacts with your nervous system, it all just made so much more sense to me. And just mental health in general made so much more sense to me. I think that's a really basic breakdown that more people could do with learning. I don't think a lot of people understand that.
Yeah.
And that's why the idea is to always try and find ways we can really demystify or break down a very complex machine such as the brain, which, as I said, it's an oversimplification. People have used, and this is a new metaphor that has come on board, the water treatment plant, just how water gets to your home. You could consider the water as brain chemicals, neurotransmitters, and the pipes as the neurons.
Yeah.
So we want to ensure that water is being delivered efficiently from the treatment plant to your home. So magnetic stimulation is like trying to fix the pipes, ensure that the chemicals, the water can flow efficiently to the homes and the house. And that way is sort of another metaphor to say, oh, some person can be on medication, which you can consider as the water, while TMS can help improve, reinforce, trigger what we call brain neuron pruning, where the neurons are actually sort of like reorganized so that ensures that chemicals can flow efficiently, because the brain is an electrochemical organ, which means it will transmit electricity and chemicals. So anything to ensure that that flows really efficiently and effectively is what we tend to get to in terms of neurotypical experiences in the brain. So if for instance, we use multiple sclerosis, for example, there are damages to the neurons. The patient might not have low serotonin, for example, although nowadays it's been debunked that mental health is not just an imbalance in chemistry. The neurons also play a part in ensuring that that chemistry is also balanced, because you can be producing enough chemical neurotransmitters, but the neurons are impaired or are damaged or are delayed, and that chemistry cannot flow effectively across the brain.
Well, I would say that there'd be no better case for that in my life than the fact that I was on SSRIs from about age 13 to late 30s.
Yeah.
And they kind of worked, but not really. And then TMS, it was just like bang, you
Yeah.
know.
Tolerance can set in over time where the body will be like, well, there's no need for me to produce serotonin if I get
Yeah,
if there's
yeah,
always supplementation of it. But anyway, it's nice to see people respond to TMS in a way where the neuron starts, there's a triggering of neuroplasticity where the neuron starts learning how to
yeah.
fire
Yeah.
at a predetermined rate as compared to what it was doing before. So TMS
Yeah.
just explores neuroplasticity, which means that the brain can change. The brain
My
is not
happiest side effect was just how clearly, how much more easily I was able to string my thoughts together.
exactly.
That was
Exactly.
amazing.
Yeah, I'm curious about like how you've seen TMS help people, particularly autistic people, because that's kind of the like as an autistic person myself, and particularly the topic of neuroplasticity is an interesting one. Like, how have you seen it? I guess change the brain or affect people in a positive way.
So from the brain side of things and where I worked before, it was fortunate because we do brain imaging such as EEG, where we do EEGs on the participant before we actually start TMS. So we got to see every fortnight that changes that neuroplasticity, where at baseline, alpha reading is considered between 8 and 13 hertz. That's the reading that is mostly dominant, where when you close your eyes, you're calm and you're relaxed. So your brain produces high levels of alpha reading. But in autistic individual, there's a attenuation of alpha reading even when they are calm and relaxed. There's a blunting of alpha. Their brain doesn't produce so much alpha reading at baseline. So by the time they receive TMS, TMS is trying to tell the brain, like, hey guy, you're not producing enough alpha reading. Can you learn this new frequency, which is within the alpha band? And after 2 weeks of treatment, you start seeing a subtle. So for some people, it's subtle. For some people, it's a significant change where you see the spike in alpha reading just being obvious. And I think that objective measure or seeing it in real time of how the brain is changing in terms of its response to neuroplasticity is the holy grail of, I would say, for we scientists, we're always happy to see those changes. But on the clinical side of things, that's where it becomes really exciting because, as we know, being neurodivergent sort of like present differently for different people.
Yeah.
So obviously, for some persons, they could have phobias, sensory abnormalities, sleep, focusing, hyperactivity. This could be their core interest. And for most of the autistic children, obviously, speech is always something that is very central for them, that parents want to see traction around that space. So one of the kids I was actually talking about in 20, like the one I gave example, who spoke, well, not audibly, but at least we could hear. That was a very interesting thing. And I think there was a paper that was just published. So a very small study that showed that actually TMS can help kids with communication. But again, it was a very, very small study. But I remember this kid from Dabo who came over to, significant phobia for spiders.
Hmm.
To the point that even when he goes to school, grandparents, we have to go into the classroom, ensure that there are no webs around. And after about 17 sessions of TMS, the kid went to Australian Zoo. And when leaving the zoo, you have to go through the gift shop. And he just grabbed the stuffed
Yeah.
spider and put it on his shoulder. And the parents were
Ah, right.
Oh,
amazed. They were like, just wow,
Yeah.
that for him was sort of how the spider, whole phobia for spider just sort of improved. But one area we see very much
Yeah.
keenly is around sensory abnormalities, whether tactile, sensitivity to light, sound. There seems to be that response. And because
wow.
my PhD was around sleep, we also saw that correlation between TMS improving sleep by improving tactile sensitivity. Or there's just a sensory abnormality was shown as a association or as a midwife for sleep difficulties in autistic individuals. So I would say
Yeah.
that's an area that TMS can naturally improve, or one way by which TMS improves autistic symptoms or comorbidities, basically. And yeah, I think I can go on and on about the various clinical
Yeah.
outcomes that people do experience, but I think it has made my life, giving me a sense of purpose and a sense of you journey with people and you see some of these changes, and it's just amazing that you get to make changes
Yeah.
in people's life.
I would just put a little something out there for any autistic people listening, as an autistic person as well. It's not a cure, and I know that some autistic people, myself included. I mean, I don't know actually who I would be without autism. I don't know if I could just turn it off that I would, but
Yeah.
it's not about that. It's about my life just so many things that made my life hard just kind of went away, or at the very least got much easier to deal with, and it just improved my quality of life. It didn't get rid of my autism or anything like that, but it really was wow. It was just particularly burnout. I just stopped getting it, which was
Wow.
wild. I'd never had that in my life.
Yeah. Because
I-
burnout's been a constant thing for me. Like
yeah.
if I'm doing a lot of stressful things at various stages in my life. So
Well, I can't say that I don't get it, but I can say that it's not as emotionally destructive
Draining.
for me
Yeah.
now if it does happen. And and because it doesn't so suddenly and intensely come on, I'm able to sort of see it coming and anticipate it and take steps to head it off at the pass before it gets really bad. And God, I don't think I've been depressed at all.
yeah,
I think
yeah.
I'm like 2.5 months out since my last treatment, and
Oh, nice. Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah, that's
and I'm still
definitely good.
feeling great.
Yeah, like
I mean, my emotions are returning, but what's that?
no, I'm just thinking about like when feeling not having that burnout, that idea of giving you that energy where you just and your brain has that cognitive processing to sort out a lot of things. Like it doesn't feel overwhelming. And as you say, it's not a treatment. It's we here at a Healthy Brain TMS will say it's supporting the journey, the mental health journey. It's reducing the severity of certain comorbidities or certain associated conditions with it. So it's not as if it's just going to treat, cure, and yeah, out of
No,
there.
no.
But at least that cognitive capacity to tell when, huh, I'm feeling burnout or this is overwhelming. I had a adult who came in today and he said he can tell his colleagues at work, can you just give me 5 minutes? Let me
Yeah,
and that ability to anticipate and say, hey, before I lash out, can you just give me 5 minutes to get myself together? Or he said
yeah,
he could type an email, then delete, type and delete until he sort of like lets the emotion out of his system and he's able to come down to baseline and really calm. So just being able to
yeah.
anticipate, know strategies to use to help you, I think that's really very much important here.
Sorry, Danny, you had more question there.
Well, I think I was just going to ask about the study you took part in on the effects of TMS on
And the
sleep in
yeah, the
autistic
sleep part in
children.
particular.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
sleep part is I find particularly interesting.
Which is nice because I had to ask Gemini who I am, and Gemini was like, I'm one of the pioneers. I like the way it put it. I'm one of the
Uh,
pioneers of TMS using for sleep and quality of life. Going back to what you said, John, about quality of life in autistic individuals or people, children living with autism. And so, what we did in this groundbreaking premier seminal study was we didn't just want to rely on subjective measures of treatment outcome in terms of sleep. So we decided to, first of all, we did a baseline sleep study, which was incredibly one of the most difficult times in my life, but the most enjoyable times where we'll go to the child's house by 7 p.m., set up the child with the sleep device. The child sleeps in his own bed. Then we deliver 10 treatments of TMS. Then at the end of the 10th session, we go to the child's house, set up the sleep equipment so that we can objectively, it's called a polysomnography study, which is like level 2 when you're doing it at home, level 2 study, so that we can objectively see the changes in the child's sleep. Also, we had the children wear an actigraphy, which is the more accurate smartwatch, which allows us to track their sleep also, because the sleep study were only done on 2 nights before and after the treatment, but the watches were worn all throughout the 2 weeks of the treatment so that we can track daily changes in sleep over that period of time. So we were very much one of the few scientists or researchers that had objectively measured sleep in children with autism between the ages of 6 and 12. And we're very pleased with the studies, with the results we saw, which, interestingly, it was the subjective reporting by the parents or by the primary caregiver that shows significant improvement in the child's sleep. Some of them were observable. So you could have some children who it would take them 45 minutes of the parents keep on saying, go to bed, go to bed, go to bed. And this child nowadays, after treatment, will just take their blanket and say, so long, and they've gone to bed. But one of the most interesting story, and I hold close to my heart, was 3 kids in a home. One of them, this eldest, was part of the clinical trial. And there was a day the mom works from home and she was at home working, and she also does homeschooling for the rest of the other kids. And the 2 siblings came in and said, oh, mom, there's something wrong with this particular kid. And the mom left the Zoom meeting she was on and hurriedly went out and like, oh, and they were like, oh, there's something wrong with him because he's just lying down. And because of the younger sibling, they have never seen their elder brother having a nap in the afternoon. So they thought something was wrong with him. So when the mom came in and she said, 12 years old, and that was the first time he was having a daytime nap ever.
Yeah.
So that was one profound outcome in the sleep, that some of the kids were having nap that were not affecting their bedtime. They were still going to bed as of when their time for bed. So improvement in total sleep time, sleep onset, nightmares. We had one child who had bedwetting that was also improved, and just general waking up and not being irritable, where they are responsive to verbal prompting, was some of the remarkable responses that a lot of the majority of the parents have reported. And in terms of quality of life, we also assess that not just for the child but also for the parents, and we saw improvement in the parents' quality of life, because
makes sense.
There's a expression in Nigeria we say, if a child doesn't sleep, the parent doesn't sleep. Because these children are young, so if the child doesn't sleep, the parent is not going to sleep. So there's a profound impact on the child's sleep on also the parent. I had one parent who was almost thinking of quitting her job just because it's difficult to stay awake all night with the child and then having to go to work the next day. So it was a very interesting study that we saw that improvement in sleep, especially around the variables on total sleep time. That was a very significant outcome there. Sleep quality also had improved. And quality of life was something that nobody had ever done to measure the quality of life of the child and also of the primary caregiver. So seeing improvement around that space was really the holy grail of the research. So we can say that although that study was on 20 children, which was not a sham control study, so we treated 10 children and 10 acted as control, which means they waited until the other 10 had finished their treatment before they also received. So there's a lot of limitation around that space. But that study has now allowed us to apply to the National Medical Health Research Council I think it's currently under review. So if we are successful, we are asking for over $500,000 to conduct a large sample size study involving 144 children between the ages of 6 and 12. So if that study is approved and that funding is, we can be able to see if on a larger sample size we can replicate the study and see which areas that these children. So that's letting you know what I'm doing in the next future. If that's it's been approved, that's where we want to go in terms of evidencing or establishing the evidence of TMS effect on sleep in autistic children.
Well,
Yeah. When you're
so just quickly, please keep us updated on that, and we'd love to have you
Yeah,
back on.
will
Yeah,
do.
definitely.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you're trying to find a sample for a study like that, do you look at things like different profiles in children, like how their autism shows up in different ways, and finding children with a variety of sleeping issues, like these children don't get enough sleep, and these ones are having nightmares, that sort of thing?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So we did 6 to 12. Obviously, 6 is the age for school. So we wanted to track in terms of school functioning for some of those kids. And we also stopped at 12 because at 12, as you turn into a teenage, when the hormone starts coming in, there are studies to show that hormones can actually make children stay late and wanted to
Uh,
wake up
yeah,
later in bed. So we didn't want the influence of hormones on sleep and wanted to also track the impact of sleep on school functioning in these children. So we picked between the ages of 6 and 12. Now, there's also the categorization of autism into levels 1, 2, and 3. So we know that level 2, or based on study, is the most prevalent level out there in the community. So we sort of stuck with level 2. But at the top of my head, the new study we are applying for was going to look across all levels of autism,
yeah,
but still sticking with that age of 6 and 12, which is just that early developmental stages of sleep. And to simply put, it could be much easier to conduct a sleep study in a 6-year-old than in a 1-year-old or so. But keeping within the ages of 6 and 12 was a very um, it was a broad range of age to actually consider in terms of recruiting from within the community, because I've seen some studies that ran for 5 years and it took them more than 3 years to actually just recruit 18 participants. But
yeah,
sometimes you have to be very strategic in terms of your recruitment, but we feel that we can, if we see improvement or we see changes in a particular demography, it could be extrapolated to other level, reasonably extrapolated to other age groups. Although the caveat is that a child who has hormones playing a role in his sleep might not have the same sleep profile as somebody who is within under the age of 12. So you could make some
yeah.
leeway of extrapolating.
It's wild how complicated sleep is.
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean, I remember when I was a child and I was undiagnosed, the most distinctive thing about my sleep was that I would have these really vivid, surreal, crazy dreams most nights that were like Terry Gilliam movies. That was all well and good unless they were nightmares. So,
yep.
yeah. I don't know how
Yes.
common that is amongst neurodivergent people, those crazy, vivid dreams.
Yeah, it could be common, and like I'm not sure of the numbers, but somewhere around the range of 30% of individuals. I mean, even just it's a little bit more on the neurodivergent side than neurotypical individuals in terms of having. I mean, you would call it vivid dreams in retrospect now, but even sometimes having such a vivid dream for a child could be a nightmare because it's like, what is this experience I'm having? Like, what's
Yeah.
really happening? So it's understandably that some children we would be having a vivid dream and it feels so real, but maybe in the dream they are trying to climb a unicorn to ride a horse, a unicorn, but they are unable to ride a unicorn, and it's so vivid. But then they are laying in bed and they can't move their body, and that confusion. So they then scream out and wake up as if it's a nightmare because it's
Yeah.
like having a sleep paralysis where you
Oh,
wake up
yeah.
but you
I
can't move
bet.
your muscles and you're like,
I've had that so often as
am I
well.
gone or am
Yeah.
I still here? And so for some
Yeah.
children, it presents as nightmares for them because it's a curveball. It's uncharted waters for them. They've not had that experience before. So
Yeah.
it's sleep is an enigma, and we usually use the expression.
Mm.
Remember, John, we are because we sleep, and
Yeah.
as much
Yeah.
as we
Oh,
can get sleep, it also has its effect on our
Yeah.
daytime functioning.
sleep paralysis is like, hello darkness, my old friend. And I put it down to working the night shift. I blamed it because I used to work the night shift when I was younger. But even when I stopped working in the night shift, I mean, sleep paralysis kept showing up.
Well,
That can really be profound. But it's also interesting because you can make a logical, and I'll just maybe touch on that. Sleep paralysis, we go to bed, the body plays you a movie called Dream so that it can entertain you while you are asleep, so that it could do a lot of work at the background. Now, in order for you not to act out your dream, the body has to paralyze you with a chemical called glycine, which, but sometimes we wake up before that chemical is able to leave our system, that we are still paralyzed, but we've come into consciousness. So I remember the second time I did experience sleep paralysis, and knowing with my background, I said to myself, oh, goodness me, glycine is still at the neuromuscular junction. All right, brain, can you send acetylcholine? Because acetylcholine is needed for your muscles to. So can you? Then I started moving my pinky finger as if I'm Johnny Depp. So I'm like, come on. So it is because that now moves me from being emotional. Oh, what's happening? What's happening? Because you can only move your eyes around, and the whole body of you is totally and that can really be frightening. But when you start saying, "Oh, this is the reason why," all right, can I move my pinky finger? All right, come on. All right, who is next? Who wants to go next? And you're talking to yourself. Glycine is being cleared out of the system. Acetylcholine comes into play, and your body can start waking up.
I'm going to keep
That's
that in
where
mind. Can I move my pinky finger? Come on,
yeah.
come on,
Come on,
acetylcholine.
guys, let's do this.
Usually when sleep paralysis comes, I've been screaming significantly more obscene things, at least in my head. But
That's what I was going to say. It's
move
hard
your
to,
pinky finger.
it's hard to stay calm and tell your brain to send the right chemicals when the aliens are trying to abduct you. You know.
Yeah.
Can I ask, with regards to success rates long term? Well, I guess short term and long term. Have there been any follow ups with these children at all? I've noticed, unfortunately, and I'm just one person, and this is one anecdote, but the sleep thing was the thing that did fall off the fastest for me after sessions completed. How did that go?
So for my PhD, we did, for my trial, we did 4 months post-study follow-up, but and the numbers didn't drop off. So we're very happy that large number of the samples were still within the trial. So we did see that the sleep was still maintained. So there was a long enduring effect of TMS on the sleep of the children up until the 4 months of for post treatment. And that was a very interesting finding to say, okay. And I think for my PhD, when I was writing my thesis, I was then making the argument that, well, we can then say 10 sessions every quarterly could cover for the year, where the children might not need to be on melatonin or clonidine or any of these other sleep medication. If we can see that the effect of TMS lasts for about 4 months for majority of the participants. So you can treat a child the first 14 days of January, then come back in April, another session, and you split it into quarterly treatment, and potentially that can cover for the whole year in terms of optimizing. So we did see a long enduring effect of over 4 months for sleep for the autistic or the sample of the participants that were within the trial. Then in terms of adults, that is always where it gets interesting because
I'm just waiting to see.
Yeah, I mean, so many factors given the fact that adults are working class, so many stresses, pressures from work life and whatnot. So it's easy for sometimes for the sleep to become affected if you have to. And this is where it gets interesting. And maybe you can speak a little bit about this, John. You start treatment, you start feeling better, you start taking more things on board. And as you take more things on board, you start cutting corners in terms of, oh, I can do more, I can do more, I can do more. And next thing, your bedtime starts shifting to 11, 12 because you just feel like, whoa, I can do all of these things. But then your sleep keeps keeping the receipt. And one day it comes to cash out and say, well, you owing me a lot of sleep. Yeah.
I like the way of putting it. You owe me.
You might be right because I found during TMS my body just started. I only needed 6 hours sleep, and I could get up and do a day, and that lasted for a while. But now I need a little bit more than I did then. But I think the main thing you said to me was regards to burnout, because I was explaining that when I was in the chair that I'm not getting burnout. You know, I can do all the things, and my task paralysis has gone away. And you're like, okay, but just remember, because you can do all the things doesn't mean you should. You can still burn yourself out, so just be careful. So I did take that knowledge on board at least, and yeah.
I
But
didn't
no,
have
I think like
yeah.
I wouldn't say my sleep is bad or like it was before treatment. It's just I am starting to feel a bit tired again. But none of the other things. I mean, nothing, no other effect that it had on me has gone away yet. And I'm, two and a bit months post. So
Which is good
That's
because then
great.
you can always focus on sleep hygiene as trying to have a regular bedtime. I think there's a lot of argument as to whether the bedtime per se, a regular bedtime is of priority than a regular wake time. Irrespective of what time you go to bed, you just have to wake up at the same time. So there's been, but to put it simply, just have a routine of a specific bedtime and not trying to push it. There are some anecdotal evidence saying between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m., that's when the body releases the highest amount of brain-derived neutrophilic factors to help in the repairing of the brain and sort of trying to clear out metabolic waste and whatnot. Because anytime from 2 a.m., 3 a.m., the body starts releasing cortisol to start waking you up and getting you ready for wake up. So the the advice or recommendation is anyone who can get to bed before 10 p.m. just to maximize that 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. quality deep sleep around that space before the body starts waking you up 2 hours into 4 a.m. or thereabout. But those are just words on the street, anecdotal evidence, basically. So, yeah.
I
Yeah.
can vouch for regularity. My friends all think I'm crazy because I'm a 9:30 till 4:30 person. So I'm
Yeah.
in bed at 9:30 and up at 4:30 in the morning. But just the regularity just gives you what I want, and that bit of time to prepare for the day too, with no expectations.
Of us. Yeah.
Yeah, same. I mean, I was in a routine of going to bed at 10 and getting up at 5 in time for like my morning martial arts class. But coming into winter, I've been a bit slacker about getting up in time for
I had to
that.
push myself this morning to go for my walk because it was like,
There was a cold chill this morning where
mm,
did that come from? It was really cold this morning. And yeah, that can always be a thing. But yeah.
one day I'll get a treadmill so that I can walk no matter what.
Yeah.
But
So,
here's the strategy. You could set an alarm and put it in the lounge.
mhm.
And once it's going off, you have to get off from your bed and walk to go turn off the alarm. And
Oh
once
yeah,
you've walked,
Right.
you've gotten out of bed,
Yeah.
yeah,
like, well, there's no point going to back to bed. So you just as well. So
yeah.
it's always trying to find
Well,
something
yeah,
that gets you out of bed.
yeah.
Sorry, go
Because
ahead.
I did find that at first I was sorry. I think we had a bit of lag there. I did find for a while that I just had to put the thought in my head first thing as soon as I wake up, like just get up, like no matter how tired you feel right now, just get up. Because once you are up, you're up, and you just start walking around and doing things. So yeah, I think it's if you don't even allow yourself to like sit up and get out of bed, that's when you sleep in later or anything like that.
There you go.
Yeah.
Sorry, I think we have some lag going on. Okay, so I just want to ask roughly. I mean, obviously it's early days. Even though TMS has been around since the '80s, but where do you see this going in the future, given the applications that have been being increasingly found for it? What do you think its place will be?
Yeah, thank you. Let's use the metaphor of, I mean, you've seen the TMS machine and you see how bulky it is. And that gives you an idea that we also remember how bulky the IBM computer was. But now this is a
Yeah,
computer in my hand.
Yeah.
So the future
yeah,
is
Yeah.
in terms of the devices, you would be able to have like a headband set where you can wear it at home, you're at work, and you'll be receiving TMS at home, wherever you are, without having to come
awesome.
to that bulky. So that's in terms of the hardware, that's the area we're going. I've seen ways where clinicians can control your stimulation protocol via the internet and through the cloud. You're able to assess you, see how you're going, and sort of titrate your treatment. So that's also a possibility in that aspect. But in terms of the plethora of conditions that can be treated, I mean, last week the FDA, or 2 weeks ago, the FDA just approved TMS for PTSD. And
Oh,
that's going to be a
Game changer.
really significant game changer for veterans, whether in
yeah.
Australia or in the US. But for us to see that TMS is now being approved, has got FDA approval for the treatment of PTSD, that's just amazing. So we've got depression, OCD, now we've got PTSD, uh, smoking cessation, pain, uh, even Alzheimer's. These are some areas where it's currently still experimental, but we're happy with the number of conditions that have been added for clinical indication by which TMS can be treated. So, in terms of simplifying the treatment headsets and everything, we're also looking at a diverse number of conditions. I remember, as I said, the brain is just an electrochemical organ. It wants to transmit electricity or chemistry across neurons effectively and efficiently. So it doesn't care what the diagnosis is. The brain doesn't care. The brain just knows that I want the neurons to communicate with each other seamlessly, and that's what it is. So anything that can change or have an impact on electrical or chemical signaling can have an impact on clinical outcomes. So if we say, for instance, Alzheimer's, and I'm just going off script here, if Alzheimer's is due to beta plaques causing the neurons to all stick together, if TMS can cross new neural pathways or generate new neural pathways or even strengthen existing neural pathways, then you could see some little bit of relief in terms of cognitive processing or memory for some individuals with autism. But that just made thinking about the the
Mm.
experimental ways by which or mechanism by which TMS can actually help with Alzheimer's. But we started
Uh,
from
do
depression, but we're now seeing so much possibility around other conditions.
do you think like as they learn to fine tune it more, that we could have deeper effects, stronger effects, or more long term
Yeah,
effects?
yeah. I mean, other older version of deep brain stimulation or even deep brain implants for treatment of tics or Tourette syndrome has been devised. But when we're looking about a non-invasive and is also trying to identify the part of the brain because the challenge is always that brain differs, although we all say the brain is the same, but sometimes there are subtle differences. I've met individuals whose the bridge between the two brain doesn't exist. They were born without a bridge between the two hemisphere of the brain. So his brain differs from my own brain. So there can be subtle differences in individuals' brain. So it's trying to find a universal area. I mean, when we did identify the left side of the brain as the area that controls depression, that's sort of like the standard that if we put the coil here, we can improve depressive symptoms in individual. So we would keep experimenting and fine-tuning other areas that can actually drive clinical outcomes and can really focus on specific conditions or specific challenges or limitations in individuals. So by local or highly targeted treatments, we are sure that we can actually have better outcomes in individuals. Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever heard of a rap group called Insane Clown Posse. But they have this crazy song about magnets. How do they work? We need to introduce them to Lawrence, Danny, and we'll tell you all about how magnets work.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
well, I mean,
beautiful.
it's certainly been enlightening for me, and I think my understanding of how magnets work is probably on the same level of the Insane Clown Posse song. So, I mean, I don't know those guys personally. I don't know how well they understand magnets in real life, or
Not
whether
Yeah.
very.
whether the song is like literal or what have you. But yeah.
It's absolutely fascinating. Yeah, I hope we do get to have another chat at some point, Lawrence. I'd like to hear any updates on like the increased study. Um, uh, with the history, just to finish off on this, is it more that from because as I understand it, it sort of started in the 80s, is that correct? And then it
Yeah.
got more
Correct.
recently got just gained momentum more recently, like in was the last 5, 10 years?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's correct.
And why was that? Was that
So,
just studies over time?
well, allow me give you a little bit of history because we can't talk about the effect TMS has had on you without giving prior recognition to Michael Faraday, who in 1883 discovered the electromagnetic field. So he had his paper published
Yeah.
in August 29, 1983, and some hundred and something years later, Dr. Anthony Barker showed that if you put an EMF close to a neuron, you can change its action potential. Simply, you can change the way the neurons behave. By 2001, the FDA had approved TMS for the treatment of depression, but it took another 20 years before we in Australia approved it by the TGA for the treatment of depression. Sometimes studies are really required, in-country studies to really, and that's why I'm hoping that with approval by the FDA for the treatment of PTSD, we might not have to spend such a long time before it's also approved by the TGA for the treatment of PTSD here in Australia. So we have this nice history of how things have, I mean, between 1983 and 19, sorry, between 1883 and 1985, from Michael Faraday to Anthony Barker to FDA approval in 2001 to the traction. What I'm saying is that the time between is really reducing in terms of the throughput in evidence we're able to establish and generate, and therefore get the regulatory agencies to approve some of this treatment for clinical outcomes. So I think
Yep.
in no distant time, as we said earlier on, more conditions will be added on board, more effectiveness will be generated out of because when Anthony Barker actually tried it, it was just a single pulse. But now you see TMS is a repeated pulse going into the brain. So we
Yep.
don't know where it might be in the next future of how these things will change in terms of optimizing its efficacy. But it's the fact that one, it's non-invasive, has no systemic side effects as compared to some pharmacological intervention. So as you might know, headaches might be the most frequently reported side effects of TMS. Other than that, TMS will not have an impact on weight gain, on sexual health, or drowsiness or whatnot. But
Yep.
it's just that advantage it has over current treatment. Not saying that current treatment doesn't work or doesn't have its place, but the advantage of TMS brings on board as a potential therapeutic option. And that's why even in the eligibility criteria under TJ is that you will have not responded positively to two antidepressants, then you can then try TMS as a potential therapeutic options for the treatment of depression. So it's really going to be exciting in the next couple of years, and with more studies coming on board. And we look forward to seeing how we can support people's mental health, support outcomes, improve quality of life. Productivity is the next big thing because I've actually looked at, more in terms of the passion, one in four Australian child is really living with a form of disability or a form of neurological condition. So any way we can try and help in optimizing or improving their quality of life, reducing negative symptoms, it will way much be better. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah,
I would
definitely.
just slightly disagree that there are no side effects. The thing is that most of them are positive. So
Yeah.
I wasn't there
Positive
to
side
treat my
effects.
yeah, I wasn't there to treat my anxiety, but lo and behold, it treated my anxiety. So yeah.
Yeah. Before we go, any shout outs we want to do? Like shout out to Healthy Brain TMS, or like, do you do like anything you want to say about where people can find you, or
Or if they can
Yeah, I
find the
mean,
study online.
yeah.
shout out to Healthy Brain TMS for giving me the opportunity to, giving me the time and giving me the space to actually be. Because I remember when John had reached out, I was like, okay, first I have to find and clear out my schedule. So Healthy Brain TMS gave me the opportunity to say, okay, fine, we can clear your schedules for you to attend this podcast or this conversation. We're
Yeah.
currently in within the psychiatric suite at Two Wellness Way in Springfield Central, which
Oh, yeah.
within this side of Brisbane or this corridor of Brisbane, we are just sort of the only player in terms of treating making use of TMS. So anybody around Springfield, Richlands, up onto Ipswich, we've got some interest from people from Toowoomba, but we're very long.
Cool.
Long commits to make. So if people feel they are within the environs, they can come on board. One of the other advantage we have, again, to the directors at Healthy Brain is that the psychiatrist, the supervising psychiatrist, isn't interested in gap fees, so it's 100% bulk billed. So anybody can
but requires a GP referral.
Yeah, it needs a GP referral, but from the psychiatrist assessment to the treatment, all total 100% bulk bill. We are interested in veterans also coming on board, and as much as people we can help, the better. And still shout out to Connected Minds TMS in Redcliffe, Capulcho, and on the north side of Brisbane. Yeah.
And I just got to say again, just in case anyone's listening who hasn't heard before, this changed my life. TMS absolutely changed my life for the better. I cannot recommend it more highly. As someone with long-term, as someone with long-term treatment-resistant depression and severe constant burnout, I have none of those things anymore. So, highly recommend.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
Cool. Well, we've gone a minute over time. Oh no!
Subscribe down below, by the way.
Oh yeah, we forgot about that.
Viewers
subscribe
out
down
there.
below. Man, we always forget to do this at the beginning. Please like and subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube.
Subscribe.
Share the video. Send it to your friends. We're really trying to have really worthy conversations around just the brain and neurodivergence and and cutting edge stuff like this as well. We want to have more conversations like this. So
and we're not selling a course.
No, we're not selling a course. We're not selling anything. We're not making any money. It's costing us money, in fact, to do this podcast. But we believe in it. We want to have these conversations. So thanks everyone for listening, and we will talk to you later. Just remember to stay on, Lawrence.
Yeah, thank you, Lawrence.
Thank you so much for having me on board.
No worries.